I found out about my husband's second family on a Tuesday morning, and by Wednesday, I was standing in front of their house, staring at my husband kissing another woman on the porch while his other children, ran around the front yard calling him Daddy. But let's go back to Tuesday. That morning, I was doing what I always did, sorting through the mail at the kitchen table while my coffee cooled beside me. Bills, advertisements, a letter from the bank, and then, tucked in between a magazine and a utilities notice, was a crisp white envelope addressed to my husband. Nothing about it stood out at first, until I saw the return address. A woman's name, a different state. Now, I'm not the kind of woman who snoops. At least, I wasn't. 50 years of marriage does something to a person. It dulls the sharp edges of curiosity, replaces suspicion with trust. But something about that envelope, something primal in me, told me to open it. And so I did. Robert, my love, I hate that you had to leave so soon. The kids already miss you. Lucas wouldn't stop crying when you drove away, and little Anna keeps asking when Daddy is coming home. I keep telling them soon, but you know how impatient they are. But I miss you too. Every night feels empty without you beside me. I keep reaching for you in my sleep. Come back to us when you can. Forever yours, Teresa. I don't remember dropping the letter, but I must have, because the next thing I knew, I was on my knees gasping for air. Teresa. Kids. Daddy. The words tangled in my mind, refusing to make sense. My husband, my Robert, had another life, another family. A woman who missed him, children who cried for him. I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, something inside me snapped. The next thing I knew, I was in my car, the letter clenched in my fist, driving faster than I had in years. I didn't care if he was at work. I didn't care if I looked crazy. 50 years of my life had just been stolen from me, and I wanted answers. But when I got to his office, his secretary gave me a confused look. Mr. Lawson? He took the week off, ma'am. He left town yesterday. Didn't he tell you? I nearly laughed. Of course, he hadn't told me. He hadn't needed to, because I already knew where he was. So I did what any woman with 50 years of loyalty and a heart full of betrayal would do. I booked a flight. I didn't call him. I didn't warn him. I just packed a bag, took that godforsaken letter, and flew across state lines to the address on the envelope. And when I got there, when I saw him standing on the porch, arms wrapped around that woman, her head resting on his chest like I used to do, while two little children played at their feet, I felt my world shatter into 1,000 jagged pieces. I didn't even remember stepping out of the taxi. But suddenly I was there, standing in the middle of the sidewalk, my voice cutting through the air like a blade. Robert Lawson, you lying, two-timing bastard! His head snapped up so fast I thought he might break his neck. And the look on his face when he saw me, it was the look of a man whose carefully constructed double life had just come crashing down. But I wasn't done. Because in that moment, as Teresa turned to look at me, her expression shifting from confusion to something dangerously close to understanding, I realized something else. Something worse. This woman, she wasn't just some fling. She knew me. She knew who I was. And the way her eyes flickered with recognition, with guilt, it meant she had been waiting for this moment all along. For a long moment, nobody moved. My husband, my Robert, stood frozen on the porch, his arms still wrapped around her like a protective shield. The woman, Teresa, stared at me, lips slightly parted, her hands trembling. But it was the way she looked at me that made my blood run cold. Recognition, guilt, and worst of all, pity. The children, a boy and a girl, couldn't have been older than 10. They stood between them, wide-eyed, clutching their mother's skirt. And when I took a step forward, they shrank back. I had flown across states to find my husband, but I wasn't prepared for this. What the hell is this? My voice shook, but I didn't care. I wanted an answer. I deserved an answer. Robert opened his mouth, then closed it. I watched his Adam's apple bob. His face had gone ghostly pale, like a man who had just been sentenced to death. Evelyn, he finally choked out. Just my name, not an explanation, not a single excuse. And that's when I realized he wasn't going to fight it, because he knew he had been caught. I want the truth, I said, stepping closer. I could hear the blood pounding in my ears. All of it. No lies. No bullshit. Teresa turned to him slowly, her hands tightening into fists. You didn't tell her? Her voice was barely above a whisper. but I heard the betrayal in it. Robert, you promised me. Shut up, Teresa, he snapped. His voice came out sharper than I had ever heard it before. And just like that, the woman I had been about to hate, the woman who had stolen my husband, wasn't the only villain anymore. Robert wasn't protecting her. He was controlling her, and she was afraid of him. That realization sent a different kind of chill down my spine. For 50 years, I had thought I knew my husband. But suddenly, I wasn't sure I ever had. Tell me, Robert, I demanded, voice trembling. How long? He exhaled sharply, raking a hand through his graying hair. 20 years, he muttered. Almost 20 years. I swayed where I stood. 20 years, half of our marriage. While I had been raising our children, running our home, loving him, he had been here, playing house with another woman. And the children? My voice cracked on the word. He didn't answer right away, but the little girl, the one who had called him Daddy, buried her face into Teresa's leg. That was all the answer I needed. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to steady my breathing. How could you? I whispered. How could you do this to me? Evelyn, No, I cut him off. Don't you dare feed me some excuse. My vision blurred with unshed tears, but I refused to cry. I refused to let him see me break. Teresa's eyes darted between us. Her hands were shaking. She wanted to say something. I could see it. You knew, I said suddenly, turning to her. She stiffened. You knew about me. Her silence was deafening. You knew he had a wife and you stayed anyway? Tears welled in her eyes. I thought, she faltered. I thought he was going to leave you. I let out a bitter, humorless laugh. They always say that, don't they? Her bottom lip trembled, and suddenly it hit me. She was just as much a victim as I was. I didn't want to pity her, but I did. Robert had lied to both of us. And just as I was about to say something, just as I was about to demand the whole story, something unexpected happened. The front door burst open, and an older woman stepped out. A woman I recognized. A woman I had known for years. I gasped. Margaret, my best friend of 40 years, stood on that porch, and she looked just as horrified to see me as I was to see her. That's when I knew. This betrayal ran even deeper than I had imagined. I forgot how to breathe. Margaret, my best friend, stood there on that porch, her eyes wide with shock, her lips slightly parted as if I had caught her in the middle of something unspeakable. But I wasn't the one who had been caught. It was her. Margaret, my voice cracked under the weight of betrayal. What are you doing here? Her reaction told me everything before she even spoke. The way her fingers clenched into fists, the way her gaze flickered, briefly, to Robert, then to Teresa, and finally back to me. She was nervous. Margaret had never been nervous in the 40 years I'd known her. Evelyn, she started, forcing an uneasy smile. This isn't what it looks like. But it was. I stepped forward, my hands trembling at my sides. How do you know her? I asked, motioning toward Teresa. Margaret's mouth pressed into a thin line. Teresa was watching her now, her face carefully blank, but I could see it, an edge of something close to fear. And that's when it hit me. You knew. My stomach churned violently. You knew about them this whole time, didn't you? Margaret's lips parted, then closed. She didn't deny it. The betrayal was a slow burn, crawling up my chest, tightening around my ribs like a vice. How long? I demanded, my voice hoarse. How long have you known my husband was cheating on me? Margaret swallowed hard. Evelyn, long. A long silence stretched between us, the kind that swallows the air, drowns out everything else. Finally, she sighed. Since the beginning. A sharp ringing filled my ears. Since the beginning? I repeated, my voice nearly a whisper. You mean, when I was crying to you? When I was begging you for advice? You already knew? Margaret closed her eyes. What? It's not that simple. No, I spat. It's exactly that simple. I staggered back, shaking my head. My knees felt weak, my entire body trembling as I looked at this woman, this friend who had sat across from me at my kitchen table, listening to my pain with sympathetic nods and empty reassurances, all while knowing the truth. You watched me suffer, I whispered, my voice breaking. You let me blame myself. You let me think I was crazy. A tear slipped down Margaret's cheek, but I felt no sympathy, because I could see it now. Not just guilt, but something else, something darker. Why? I breathed. Why would you do this to me? She let out a shuddering breath. Because, she said slowly, for years, all I ever heard from you was how perfect your life was. I froze. The trips, she continued, her voice bitter now. The luxury, the expensive dinners, the way Robert spoiled you. Do you know what it's like, Evelyn? To sit there, pretending to be happy for your best friend, while knowing you will never have what she has? My stomach dropped. Margaret, you had everything, Evelyn, she snapped, her eyes flashing, and you never even realized it. I could barely process what I was hearing. So, what? You hated me? You were jealous? She let out a bitter laugh. No, I didn't hate you. I just wanted you to know how it felt to lose something for once in your perfect little life. A sickening realization dawned on me. It was you. Margaret held my gaze. You're the reason Teresa met Robert, aren't you? The silence was deafening. And then, finally, she nodded. The breath left my lungs in a sharp gasp. I set up her internship, she admitted. I told Robert she was my niece, that she was young, smart, ambitious. You even helped me get her into his company, Evelyn. Remember? You spoke to Robert about it. You put in a good word. I felt like I was going to be sick. But I never introduced them, she continued. That was all, Teresa. I only made the introduction possible. The rest happened naturally. Naturally. Like poison spreading through my marriage. So all those years, I whispered, while I was confiding in you, crying to you, you were sitting there, knowing you helped make it happen? Margaret lifted her chin. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I let out a choked laugh. Oh, how far was it supposed to go? She exhaled, rubbing her temples. Robert was supposed to have a fling, something small, something that would make you less proud, less superior. I just wanted you to understand what it's like to have rainy days. I stared at her, stunned beyond words. She had wanted me to suffer, to hurt. Not because I had wronged her, but because I had been happy, and she hadn't been. But then, Margaret continued, casting a wary glance at Teresa, she got pregnant, and everything changed. The world blurred around me. Pregnant? I repeated, voice barely above a whisper. Teresa was pale, her hands trembling at her sides. Margaret sighed. She lost the baby. But by then, Robert had already built a life with her. He wasn't going to walk away. I swayed where I stood. All those years, all those lies. And the worst part? Margaret wasn't sorry. You ruined my marriage, I whispered. You destroyed everything. Margaret met my gaze, and for the first time I saw it, the satisfaction buried beneath the surface. I evened the playing field, she said simply. I clenched my jaw, turning to Robert. And you, I spat. Did you ever love me? Or was I just the first fool before your real family came along? His expression was unreadable. I loved you, he said. But love changes. A cold chill ran through me. I turned back to Margaret, my lips curling into something close to disgust. I hope it was worth it, I said, voice shaking. I hope watching me fall apart brought you all the happiness you were missing. Margaret held my gaze for a long moment, and then she smiled. That smug, satisfied curve of her lips sent a violent shudder through me. She wasn't sorry. She had no regrets. She had won. For the first time in my life, I felt true, unfiltered hatred. I hope it was worth it, I repeated, my voice sharp as a blade. Margaret tilted her head, her expression unreadable. It was, she said simply. And that was it. No remorse, no guilt, no attempt to justify what she had done. She had orchestrated the destruction of my marriage just to watch me crumble. She had guided her niece into Robert's life, watched as my husband built a second family, and she had sat across from me for years, sipping tea and nodding along as I poured my heart out, knowing damn well she was the reason for my misery. My chest ached. My breath came in short, uneven bursts. And then, suddenly, everything inside me, every ounce of heartbreak, every piece of sorrow, was overtaken by something else. Rage. Deep, burning, unstoppable rage. I turned to Robert, who was watching me with something close to discomfort, as if he had only just now begun to grasp the depths of the damage he had caused. You threw away 50 years, I said, my voice eerily calm. For what? He swallowed, shifting uncomfortably. Evelyn? No. I lifted a trembling hand. Don't say my name. Don't you dare say my name. Robert sighed, rubbing a hand down his face. I never meant to hurt you. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. You never meant to? You built a whole life behind my back, Robert. You had a child. We lost the baby? Teresa interrupted, her voice tight. I snapped my gaze to her. And what? I spat. You think that makes this easier? You think that erases the years of deceit? Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, but I didn't care. Not one bit. She had wrecked my marriage. She had taken my husband and built a future with him while I sat alone, wondering why my life was falling apart. You ruined my family, I whispered, my voice trembling. And for what? A man who would have done the same to you given enough time? Teresa flinched. Because she knew. Deep down, she knew. Robert wasn't faithful. He wasn't loyal. If he could do it to me, his wife of 50 years, he could damn well do it to her too. And one day, he would. You deserve each other, I said coldly, all of you. I turned on my heel, ready to leave this hell behind. But then, Margaret laughed, a small, satisfied chuckle, and I froze. You act so righteous, Evelyn, she mused, crossing her arms. But I know you. I know how much you loved being admired. You thrived on it. You lived for the attention Robert gave you. I spun to face her, my pulse hammering in my ears. You think this is funny? I hissed. I think it's justice, she said coolly. You walked around for years like your life was a fairy tale, Evelyn, always talking about how wonderful Robert was, how lucky you were. You never once thought about how it made the rest of us feel. I took a slow, steady breath. So you punished me? I said, my voice laced with venom. For being happy? Margaret shrugged. Happiness should be shared, Evelyn, not shoved in people's faces. I stared at her, barely recognizing the woman in front of me. This was my best friend? This bitter, twisted monster? A slow, cruel realization crept into my mind. She hadn't just wanted me to suffer. She had enjoyed it. She had relished in my pain. I clenched my fists. I hope it was worth it, I whispered. Margaret smirked. It was. A cold silence settled between us. Then slowly I smiled. Good, I said. Margaret's smirk faltered. Because you're going to need that satisfaction to keep you warm when you lose everything. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. What do you mean? She asked, wary now. I let out a breath, my anger simmering beneath the surface like a storm ready to break. You think I was just going to walk away? I asked, tilting my head. You think I was going to let you destroy my life and get away with it? Margaret stiffened. What are you saying? She demanded. I took a step forward. I'm saying you made a mistake, Margaret, I murmured. You should have let me walk away. You should have let me leave in peace. Her face paled. Because now, I continued, my voice eerily soft, I'm going to make you feel what it's like to lose everything. Margaret took a step back. You're bluffing, she scoffed. You have nothing on me. I smiled. You think I don't have proof? Her eyes widened. I recorded everything. The blood drained from her face. What? She whispered. Every word, I said, my smile widening. Every smug little confession you just made, it's all recorded. And guess what? I have plenty of people who would love to hear it. Margaret stumbled back, her lips parting. Evelyn, you wouldn't. I leaned in. Watch me. And with that, I turned on my heel and walked away. Because this wasn't over. Not even close. Margaret had spent years plotting against me. Now, it was my turn. Robert and Margaret thought they had won. They thought I would shrink away, broken and humiliated, while they lived happily ever after on the ruins of my life. But they forgot one thing. I was not a woman to be underestimated, and I was about to remind them exactly why. The first strike, exposure. I sat at my desk, the recording open on my phone. Happiness should be shared, Evelyn, not shoved in people's faces. I hope it was worth it. It was. I didn't hesitate. I attached the recording to an email and sent it out. Not to strangers, not to gossip pages. No, I sent it to the people who mattered. Our closest friends, Robert's business associates, the very social circles that Margaret and Robert had worked so hard to maintain. Then I sat back and I waited. It didn't take long for the fire to spread. By the next morning, my phone was blowing up. Evelyn, is this real? Oh my God, how could they do this to you? Margaret, your best friend? But I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The world was already turning against them. At first, Robert tried to do damage control. But the problem with being a man who thrived on business connections was that those connections relied on trust. And now, no one trusted him. Word got out. The whispers turned into full-blown conversations. His most valuable partners started pulling out of deals, afraid of the bad press. Clients stopped returning his calls. Investors withdrew their support. One by one, the pillars holding up his empire crumbled. And soon, Robert was no longer the man with the golden touch. He was poison, and the business world wanted nothing to do with him. I filed for divorce under infidelity. Robert didn't even fight it. He couldn't. His reputation was already in shambles. His business was hanging on by a thread, and he knew that dragging this to court would only make things worse. By the time the papers were signed, I walked away with half of everything he was worth, and then some. It was poetic justice. He had traded me in for a younger woman, thinking he was securing his future. Instead, he had lost everything. A few days later, Robert heard a knock on his door. He opened it to find his 2 children standing there, a suitcase beside them, and a letter tucked into the hand of his eldest. It was from Teresa. "Robert, I can't do this anymore. The bad press, the whispers, the stares. I can't live like this. I won't subject myself to it. But the kids need their father. I will come to visit when I can, but from now on, they are your responsibility. Don't contact me unless it's about them." Robert read the letter twice, his hands shaking. For the first time since he'd chosen to betray me, he was truly alone, and he deserved every second of it. If Robert's destruction was satisfying, Margaret's was delicious. Because while Robert had power and money, Margaret had something even more fragile, her social standing. And once the recording got out, that standing collapsed. She became a pariah. The very people she had spent years trying to impress wanted nothing to do with her. Her name became synonymous with manipulation and betrayal. She couldn't walk into a room without hearing whispers, couldn't go to the store without people giving her dirty looks. She was gossiped about, ridiculed, and eventually shunned. She had spent her entire life trying to be part of the elite, and now she was exiled from it. The first letter arrived a few months later, a simple white envelope with my name on it. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a long handwritten letter from Margaret. She begged for my forgiveness. She explained why she had done it. "I was bitter, Evelyn. I was jealous. You had the life I always wanted. The trips, the luxury, the adoration. And the worst part? You never even noticed how much I was suffering. You never offered to help me when I struggled after my divorce. You only talked about your own happiness. I hated you for that. But I realize now it wasn't your fault. It was mine. I ruined everything, and now I have nothing left. People whisper about me when I leave my house. No one wants to associate with me. I can't even go to my favorite coffee shop without feeling like I don't belong anymore. I'm leaving the city. I'm moving somewhere quiet, somewhere small where no one knows me. Maybe there I can start over. I wish you the best, Evelyn. I truly do. And I am so sorry for everything I did to you." I read the letter, and then I burned it. I owed Margaret nothing. She got what she deserved. And as for me, I was finally free.